Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the summary for the day of 465 to 466 for the 3rd to the 4th of June. In the Ukraine war or the special military operation in Ukraine and boomz, the Ukrainian counteroffensive, wrong word, Ukrainian super duper uber offensive seems to have begun. So now stay tuned and you'll probably see where it happens. So we go from the southern front in the anti-clockwise direction as usual. At the Zaporizhzhia region, on the Kherson region, there is nothing. There's no fighting around here. Moving into the Zaporizhzhia line, at the Zaporizhzhia front, we have the Ukrainians attacking from Mala to Mashka. It's unclear from which direction. According to Ryba, they say that they attack from Mala to Mashka in the Kharkiv sector, and they managed to break through. However, they got pushed back later and back to their original line. And according to Remelin 21, the pro-Russian source, so Ryba and Remelin both is pro-Russian source, they say that the attack is in support with tanks. However, they got discovered in advance, which enables the Russian forces to stop them. So this is Kharkiv, this is Malatomashka, and there's an attack. I believe it's probably in this direction along the road, probably not in this direction. So probably along the road so that they can actually control this area here. Then they can allow them to go down to Zaporizhzhia. So and then for the Russian Defense Ministry, they reported shelling though. The shelling is reported at Kreminna on the 3rd, Svatove on the 3rd, Malatomashka on the 3rd. The reason is why it's only on the 3rd is because because maybe on the 4th there was just fighting. So then there's because on the 4th the things is still okay, forget it. Then there's shelling reported at Chivone. And then we go into the Velika Novosilka sector. So this is Velika Novosilka, and this is one of the major nodes along the Zaporizhzhia line. And this is where all the crazy shit happens. The Ukrainians attack across the entire front in the Velika Novosilka region, and they went probably as far as Pradyutny. However, this entire advance was initially successful as they pushed the Russian lines back. However, the Russians counterattack, and then the Ukrainians fall back to their original line. This attack actually is big enough to warrant attention from the Russian Defense Ministry to give a specific report on what happened. So the Ryba initially first reported this, saying that it's actually small groups along the entire front. These attacks by small groups along the entire front, which looks like a full-fledged reconnaissance in combat. This is to not just check on the Russian defenses, but also to coordinate action on the scale of the entire combat front. And then in the later report, they say that this is they reinforce that this is just a reconnaissance in combat, and it's an assessment of both themselves and the enemy as part of combined arms assault. The Russian Defense Ministry make it sound much bigger offensive. So they say that in the morning of the June 4th, the Ukrainian forces launched a large-scale offensive in 5 sectors in the front of the South Donetsk direction. So they did not mention very specifically where exactly this offensive happened by the Russian Defense Ministry, but we have this information from other sources. And they say that this is the 23rd and 31st Mechanized Brigade from the Strategic Reserve of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, supported by other military units and subunits. So a total of 6 mechanized and 2 tank battalions were involved in this offensive. So they describe the Ukrainians are trying to, the goal is to break through the most vulnerable lines in the opinion of the Ukrainians. However, they say that, of course, they will always say that the enemy did not achieve their success. And then they say that the Eastern Group of Forces managed to skillfully and competently, operate on this defensive operations, and managed to cause so-called losses of 250 personnel, 16 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, 21 armored combat vehicles. The infantry losses actually doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds very typical of a daily, kills that the Russian Defense Ministry tend to report on. But 16 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, and 21 armored combat vehicles is actually a lot. So this indeed could, is a signal that it's actually a much bigger offensive or offensive operation on the Ukrainian side. And the most interesting thing is that they actually noted that Gerasimov, the general of the army, which is the chief of staff, basically the highest ranking military guy, because Shoigu, the defense minister, is not a military guy. So the highest ranking military guy, Gerasimov, is actually in this direction. He's actually here in the advanced command post. So this is interesting that he say that. Of course, no picture, no talk. Hope they can bring up some footages, seeing him in action, controlling some Gundam, fighting in the front. And we go from the south. There is fighting reported at Levatne. This report first came out from Deep State UA. From what I see, they only say fighting along the contact line from Levatne to Neskushne. And Deep State UA sometimes is a bit insidious because they do not say who is actually attacking. They only say fighting. And sometimes this is quite irritating because what's the difference, man? So anyway, the Ryaba reported that there is a attempt, evidently, to capture the stronghold of the Russian forces near Priune and Levatne. And so they say that in this front line, 1 tank and 1 Humvee was lost on the Ukrainian side, including 7 other pieces of vehicles. And then they say that the fighting was from the direction of Novodarivka. I not too sure where's Novodarivka actually. Novodarivka. Okay, it's messed up. So this is just an example how difficult it is sometimes to find locations. And so the fighting in fact also reached Priune. According to Remelin 21, another pro-Russian source, they say that there is an attempt to try to storm the settlement of Prionoye. However, they lost 3 Kozak armored vehicles, and this might mean that the attack towards Prione is actually a blitz. They use fast-moving vehicles without armored support, without tank support, and then the tank actually attacked Levatne instead. So interesting idea. And further up north, sorry, Novodarivka is here. You see lah. Okay, then so in this Novodarivka direction is it doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, there's also fighting reported at Novodarivka. So according to Syria maps, in his mapping, he shows where are the lines, and the fighting is reportedly at Novodarivka. The same report towards Rivnopil. Ryba actually added a bit more information about this. They say that in Rivnopil, the Ukrainians cannot even get close to the village, so the fighting is still a bit of a distance away. There's fighting reported on the western part of Nekoshne. This is based on the mapping by Surya maps, and there's fighting reported at Nekoshne. This is also by Surya maps, and Surya maps actually map Nekoshne as under Russian control. So this is interesting because the last information that we have was that Nekoshne is still pretty much contested. The Ukrainians supposedly have the control of Nekoshne. So somewhere along the past 3-4 months, 5 months, the Russians seems to have managed to capture Nekoshne. So we have awarded this to the Russians with the flag. However, this is still definitely under dispute at this moment. I will check the Deep State UA's mapping before the next SITREP to see whether this is reflected. And however, this mapping by Surya maps reporting on the front line where the Ukrainians attack in the multiples across the entire front, put it that way, have put into some clarity about Novosilka as well as Novopil. So previously these were put as possibly under Russian control. With the information coming from this offensive, we can confirm that Novopil and Novosilka is actually under Ukrainian control. So this gives us some clarity. The Russian Defense Ministry press center for the Vostok Group of Forces reported that they actually used flamethrower system on the 3rd. So this was before the offensive. So so despite, you know, with all the drone technology, satellite technologies, the amount of shelling in this area seems to be lacking, which allows the Ukrainians to actually launch an offensive. So you can see that even with the technology that we have today, it's not so easy to, you know, to cover such a big ground. You know, if you ever go through a security cam footage to try to pick out specific thing in a specific time frame, you will know how difficult it is. So similarly, when you look at satellite imaging like this, you know, you will go crazy trying to find where the enemy are. So this is the fighting reported in the Velika Novosibirsk region, where the Ukrainians launched a massive offensive. They did not manage to capture new grounds. Unfortunately, after the initial success, they got pushed back. Moving on, there into the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, we have shelling being reported at Zolota Neva. This is reported by the press center of the Vostok Group of Forces. And then there's shelling reported at Palivka on the 3rd. And on the 4th, however, as part of the offensive, the Ukrainian offensive, there's also an offensive happening over the Volhyda region, with the Ukrainians attacking Palivka and Mikhailsky from the Volhyda direction. Reports coming from Remelin 21 and War Gonzo. So Remelin 21 actually quoted War Gonzo saying that there's a fighting in the direction of Volhyda. Fighting happens on the southwestern part of Volhyda, so this is southwestern part. And the Ukrainians are pulling reserve to continue to, you know, operate on this offensive. War Gonzo reported this as well, which is the source of this information. They say that based on their sources of War Gonzo, the offensive operations did not succeed for the Ukrainian side, where the Ukrainians have to actually withdraw back to their lines. The reason was because they actually failed to properly bring up reserves, so they are unable to, you know, carry on the offensive. Similarly, Remelin 21 then reported that there was actually fighting reported towards Mikhailsky as well. So there was a attempted reconnaissance by Enforce. Basically, it's just an offensive, and however, it did not work out. So there was this. So basically, it's a two-pronged attack in a single day on the 4th of June. There is also a lot of information about reinforcement and gathering of forces. The Ryba reported there's a concentration of forces at Oretny, reinforcement reported at Koma, concentration of forces at Maksimivka, at Novoukrainka, at Vodian, at Korakove, as well as Volhyda. So this information seems to be very interesting, which means that there's a likelihood that there's a major offensive going to happen in this area here, with Ukrainian forces, you know, gathering in this area here. As if I mark it out, you probably can see it much clearer. So, which means that we might actually see some kind of offensive action very soon. Maybe there's a push to re-secure Marinka. Oh, there's also another force at Mykolaiivka. Sorry, Novomihailivka. So there might be a push in this direction, a push out south this way, and then further attack. So this is looking like one of the major offensive over at this region here. The information, so did I click on so I can just show you the sources. Ryba reported the reinforcement of 37th Brigade of the Ukrainian Navy at Koma, Oretny, Maksimivka, Novoukrainka, and then we have Vodian. By the one at Vodian, Novodian Volhyda, as well as Novomihailivka, these are American mercenaries that reportedly arrived at these three locations. So we have the Americans arriving in this direction to help out in the offensive operations in this area here. And then over at the Novomihailivka region, we have fighting reported at Novomihailivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they discovered some recon forces which they engaged on the 3rd of June. And on the 4th and the 3rd of June, there is also, however, no contradicting information is that the Ukrainians say that the Russians are attacking. However, they say that it's in the area of Oleksandrivka, which means that there might be an attack in this direction, in this way. However, the Rybar, the pro-Russian source, contradict this information. They say that the Ukrainians are actually advancing with the support of artillery from Konstantinivka in the south of Marinka. So they say that the Ukrainians are actually attacking in this way. So yeah, so to be fair, the Russian one is on the 3rd, is reported on the 3rd. This one is on the 4th, probably as part of the entire Ukrainian offensive. So this is what's happening over south of Marinka. Russian Defense Ministry reported shelling at Boyeda, and over at Marinka itself, on the past 2 days, the 3rd and the 4th, there's fighting reported at Marinka, coming from both Russian and Ukrainian sources and neutral sources. The Surya map says the Russians now control 80% of Marinka, and then this is actually an increase from previous estimates. According to Rybar, there's fighting reported at Polyravshna Street, as well as at Kestonova Street. And basically, it's kind of pointless. They just simply advancing across the entire front. Yeah. So this is what's happening. Fighting is also reported in the northern part, where in the latest mapping from Rybar, it seems like they have captured even more grounds along the reservoir or the lake region. So the push here is extremely intense. If you look at the latest report by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that they repulsed 16 enemy attacks. 16. That's basically almost 1 per hour, and then leaving you another 8 hours to sleep. So that is quite a lot. So this is the push now in Marinka, and yeah, like I said, unless the Ukrainians reinforce greatly in this region, I think this town is going to fall pretty soon. Moving away from the Donetsk Front, we have moving into Avdiivka Front. Before I start talking about the individual stuff that is happening there, I just want to say that the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said nothing is happening over here. The enemy did not conduct offensive operations on the 3rd nor on the 4th. So there's nothing happening here. So now let's see what's happening over here. Performance, there's fighting reported on the 3rd and on the 4th. Information coming from the Ukrainian, from Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, with the push in this direction. And as part of the Ukrainian offensive, there is fighting reported on the 4th here as well. There's fighting reported towards Vodian and towards Opitne. This information is coming from Remelin 21, the pro-Russian source. And like I said, Deep State UA simply mentioned fighting near. They never say who is attacking. So according to Remelin 21, they said that this is actually the Ukrainians are on the attack. So he mentioned about some rumors about Vodian being captured by the Ukrainians. Then Remelin 21 basically said that this is untrue, and I also think that it cannot be true, because if you know how slow this front line is, you know that it's impossible for a quick capture of any towns over here. Russian Defense Ministry reported shelling at Tonenke and Latoshkine. Continue to shell this two very important node in this final road road network for the Ukrainians. So yeah, so this is actually a deliberate attempt to limit the supply and the communications on the Ukrainian side easily, as the Russians continue to be reportedly attacking at Avdiivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the 1st Army Corps continue to be operating against Avdiivka. I believe it's this direction, based on the Russian Defense Ministry's previous reports. However, we have Deep State UA reported fighting at Kamyanka. So this is actually probably the Russians attacking in a pincer-like movement from 2 different directions. Not really pincer, more like a teeth bite. And then so further up north, in in the Bakhmutivka, Krasnohorivka, Novokalinove region, there's nothing. There's no offensive operations being reported. There is only shelling reported at Kadamik. This happened on the third's report, not happened on the third. On the third's report. And that's all from the Avdiivka Front. There's nothing over at New York Front, and moving into the Bakhmut Front. At the Bakhmut Front, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians are still attacking. The Russians are attacking towards Bilahora, and also fighting in the region of Klishevka towards Ivaniski. So the Myro Shinikov, the pro-Ukrainian source, reported battles near Klishevka, as well as the northern flank. So the one I just want to show you, the fourth one is coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The northern one is a bit funny. They say there are battles, but I do not know who is attacking. Here I can indicate it as the Russians are attacking, because the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say it is the Russians attacking. So we're just going to take it with a pinch of salt and say that the Russians are attacking. But the one in the northern flank is kind of weird. Myro Shinikov is not as credible as Ramelin 21. They are equivalent, they are like the Ukrainian and Russian equivalents of my secondary sources. But yeah, that is too vague. I think Myro Shinikov lately has been super vague, so his information is very hard to back. That's all from the Bakhmut Front though. There's nothing much here happening, as the offensive action is all across. Is okay. This is in this direction. This is more largely like this. So there is a far away that at Kopcheve or Koptevo. There's nice scope over there as a Ukrainian Sukhoi 27 getting coped down over at Kopcheve. And moving into Siversk. At the Siversk, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to report offensive operations at Spurny. They say that the Russians are attacking in this direction. And also further up north at Bilohorivka on both days, 3rd and the 4th, the Russians are attacking Bilohorivka. And according to information from the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that there is some recon forces operating near Kryhorivka that they neutralized. I'm not sure if it's here or is it here. I'm not too sure. So there is fighting reported near Kryhorivka. The Russian Defense Ministry also reported shelling at Kryhorivka. It might be related. This shelling is on the 3rd. Okay, it's not related. And so that's all from the Siversk Front. And moving into the Kreminna Front, at the Crimea some banana front, there is shelling reported at Serebransky Forestry. This information is from the Russian Defense Ministry. Shelling is also reported at Dibrova on the 3rd and on the 4th. The Ukrainians also launched an attack nearby, but this one is on the 3rd at Kuzmine. This is some recon forces getting engaged by the Russian Defense Ministry. And over at Dibrova is also on the 3rd. Information coming from the Center Group of Forces, the press center chief reported that the Ukrainians actually launched 4 different attacks close to Serebransky Forestry, which means it's not at Serebransky Forestry. They say that it is in the Krasny Liman direction, which is the Liman direction, which is Liman is actually here. This is Liman. So probably they are attacking near Dibrova. So which then can corroborate that about this shelling at Dibrova reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. So the Ukrainians were attacking in this direction, and then they got shelled. And however, the fighting, they did engage, and they did contact with the Russian forces, and the fighting was reportedly with small arms supported by Air Force, and so the Ukrainians did not succeed, and they have to actually withdraw. The shelling is reported at Torske on the according to the Russian Defense Ministry, and Yampolivka, both is on the 4th of June. And further up north, we have shelling reported at Nevsky on the 3rd, and Makievka on the 4th. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported in an unusual report. I think it's it's like a reshare of another Telegram post. They talk about the Russians having this Storm Z assault detachment, which I never hear before from the from the Russian side. They say that these are prisoners trained for assault operation in special camps, and then they conduct offensive operation in the area of Masyitivka, Novoselivsky, Kuzimivka, Makievka, and Bilohorivka, and Spernay. So they are trying to say that all the Russian forces that is on the offensive are all prisoners. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. So yeah, we will definitely continue to monitor and see whether if that's the case. I haven't really seen such information from the Russian side though. And that's all from the Kreminna Front. So moving further up, we have also, okay, there's a recon operation reported near Liman, and they got neutralized or prevented by the Russian Defense Ministry. I have no way to map it as an fighting because it's so far away from the front line. So the only way I can do is just put it as a recon operation. Maybe they got stopped by air strikes or drone strikes or something. So yeah, and that's moving into the Svatove Front. At the Svatove Front, the Ukrainians attacked at Avdiivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that the Ukrainians on the 4th of June conducted 4 different recon operations and in all different locations. So one of them is actually at Avdiivka. So this was stopped. And further up north, as usual, Novoselivsky is continue to be a freaking hotspot. Fighting is reported on the 3rd, according to Deep State UA and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They said that the Russians are attacking over here, in this area here. And then on the 4th, things get blurred because both sides are saying that each other is attacking. The Russian Defense Ministry say that there is Ukrainian recon operation over here, whereas Deep State UA and Ukrainian Defense Ministry says that the Russians are attacking in this area here. And the shelling is reported at Novoselivsky, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Shelling is also reported at Berestove. Ukrainians were attacking, not attacking, but they have recon operations near Berestove. It's part of the same report we have mentioned earlier. Shelling is reported at Kreminna on the 3rd. And that's all from the Svatove Front. And we move into the Kupyansk Front. This is Kupyansk. And at the Kupyansk Front, we have recon operations at Timkovka. And on the 4th, the Russian Defense Ministry reported shelling at Timkovka. So I believe this shelling is actually relating to this recon action. Or maybe they are not. I also do not know. Yeah, but you know, this area continued to be always part of this dance of recon and shelling. Shelling is reported near Vishana on the 4th of June, at Sinkivka as well, and also near Vorishny. That one is on the 3rd, and also at Novolinsk on the 4th. The Ukrainians have recon operations at Sinkivka on the 3rd, near Sinkivka, and then at Masyitivka, the Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source reported fighting continues to be at Masyitivka on the 3rd and on the 4th. This did not mention who is actually attacking. I'm assuming that it's the Russians. So, and moving further up north, there's an interesting thing. The Russian forces have captured Novolinsk. This town along the Oskil River, which I just reported was shelled by the Russian forces, has apparently been captured by the Russian forces. The Russian forces crossed over the river. They managed to cross the river and control the high ground. And as they control the high ground, this town become untenable. The Ukrainians withdrew from the town as a result of this attack. So the Russian forces actually captured Novolinsk, the first capture since Bakhmut, I would say. This information was highlighted by Deep State UA. They say that they cannot confirm this information. They say that this, based on Russian information, this is the case, which means Deep State UA beats Ryba. That's all I can say. So so we'll continue to see whether this is the case. If this is true, then which means the Russians have salients over here. This will mean that they have 2 different salients around Kupyansk now. Around Vorishna now. So we have one over here. There's a beachhead over here, and another beachhead over here. which means the Russian forces, if they can continue to maintain this crossing in this area here, they can actually do a pincer around Voreshna and capture Voreshna, and this will allow them to reinforce much faster with a proper breach, and then they can actually spill out into the Kupyansk region, into the Kharkiv region, and this will actually wreak havoc on the Ukrainians' military plans. And moving into the Kupyansk Front, Kharkiv Front. At the Kharkiv Front, there is a cross-border attacks on both sides. The Russians attack Zeleny again. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that the Russian recon forces attempted to attack Zeleny, as usual, unsuccessfully. And the Ukrainians, on the other hand, attacked Novaya Tavozhanka. So this is what is happening. The one at Novaya Tavozhanka is interesting. So the Russian Defense Ministry reported that they discovered the recon group crossing the river near Novaya Tavozhanka, and artillery strike was fired at them, and then they scattered and withdraw. However, based on pro-Russian source Ryba, their information is that there are 20 Ukrainian troops without armored vehicles sneak into the village, and they are so-called the Russian Volunteer Corps, or the Legion of Free Russia thingy. And however, these troops were identified to be Polish and American. They are not Russians. And they also noted that there are additional personnel that is actively working with them to evacuate any wounded or killed as soon as possible. So I think this might actually be a bit of a misinformation. So you can ignore that. Ryba then in the later report says that the Ukrainians tried to break into the state border of Novaya Tavozhanka, and after fierce fighting, the Ukrainians were pushed back. So the Ukrainians attacked, and then they got pushed back. The interesting thing is that there are footages showing fighters within the settlement. However, according to Sanya Florida, a neutral source, he says that these footages is from Irpin, from the beginning of the war. So if you do see the footage of fighting at Novaya Tavozhanka, do take it with a massive pinch of salt, because that might actually be true. That is actually from Irpin. So as far as I can tell from Ukrainian sources, the Russians are already not say they are evacuating civilians, but the civilians are evacuating themselves from this region here. So they are actually trying to go to somewhere safer. So that's what's happening over at the Shebekino region. And there is also some rumors, saying that all these attempts at the fighting over in the north part of Kharkiv is just a diversionary attempt for the Ukrainians to infiltrate further into the rear area with other agents or people to organize more partisan actions. This is rumors, so just want to let you know about it. So anyway, this is the summary for the day of 465 to 466 for the 3rd to the 4th of June. Pretty lengthy one. We haven't done such a lengthy one for some time because the Ukrainians have launched their super duper uber offensive finally, and let's see if this will sustain over the next few days, because if this is just a one-day thing, then then it's a bit too fluffy. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next update.